Tonight, according to investigative journalist John Solomon, writing at the Hill newspaper, new memos conclusively show a systematic effort by FBI officials to cripple the Trump campaign and later the Trump administration. These memos, which were unearthed during recent oversight investigations, reveal politically inflamed FBI employees, activists basically, working to accelerate an investigation into Donald Trump before Election Day, apparently hoping to influence the outcome of the election. At the heart of this effort, you guessed it, disgraced official Peter Strzok, who led the Russia investigation from the beginning and later promised his girlfriend Lisa Page that they would be able to, quote, stop Trump. They did their best. In September 2016, for example, Trump advisor Carter Page wrote a letter to the director of the FBI, Jim Comey, complaining about what he said were false leaks about him. Strzok's reaction to Page's letter, quote, at a minimum, he texted his girlfriend, this letter provides us a pretext to interview Carter Page. A pretext, in other words, an excuse. In another memo, 4 weeks before Election Day, Strzok tells Page he is placing the, quote, hurry the F up pressure on Andy McCabe to get a FISA warrant to spy on Carter Page. Even after the election, they didn't stop. In one email, Strzok discusses the need to share any potential, quote, derogatory information the FBI might have gleaned from confidential informants. Keep in mind, these are the same people, Strzok and Page, who wound up as members of the Mueller investigation. There's no defending any of this, and yet the left is. Carter Page has been on the receiving end of all this for years now, and he joins us tonight. Carter Page, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Tucker.
So let's go back on the timeline to the letter that you sent to Jim Comey, then director of the FBI, about the leaks against you. What were those leaks?
Well, I sent that on Sunday, September 25th, 2016. 2 days before that, on the Friday, the September 23rd, there was a big defamatory article put out by a Yahoo News. And, you know, as we subsequently learned from the House intelligence memos, that was part of the, this fake news article was actually used as part of the FISA application. So completely outrageous.
Carter, I'm having a little trouble with my audio. I'm pretty certain that our audience can hear you just fine. So just clarify for us the basics here. You have not, after all of this, and you've been under surveillance, in effect under investigation for years now, you haven't been charged with anything. Do you expect that you're going to be charged with anything after all of this?
Tucker, I couldn't even imagine anything that I could potentially be charged with. It's just, you know, particularly after seeing John Solomon's article today, it just becomes, you know, the whole, you know, using the term from that quote you had, pretext. The pretext was absolutely outrageous, ridiculous. And so, you know, this is pretext wrapped upon pretext. It's completely out of control. So I can't even imagine what I would be charged with.
Do you know, after, again, all of this, what exactly the suspected crime was? You were the subject of a FISA warrant, the federal government turning its awesome surveillance powers on you. That's a big deal. We have a whole court system designed to keep that from being abused. Why would the federal government want to read your emails and spy on you in ways we may not even know about? What did they think you were doing exactly?
Well, I think, as we learned with the first Inspector General report from a couple of weeks ago, I call it Inspector IG Report 1.0, you know, there's a lot of political motivations behind what was happening earlier in the presidential election campaigns. And I think what is a lot of evidence that has come out both from House Intelligence Committee, Senate Judiciary Committee, House Judiciary, as well as others, there was a lot of abuses going on. So, you know, I think it's completely political. There's nothing substantive to this whatsoever.
Well, presumably, if there were something substantive, you'd be charged with a felony, right? So this is not the behavior of a free country,
yes,
of an open, legitimate government spying on its own citizens for political reasons. What does this cost you financially?
Tucker, I'm not, you know, it's like President Trump said during the campaign, it's not about me, it's about us. I'm not concerned, you know, it's cost me tremendously. It's cost many people in the Trump movement, you know, the people I was volunteering with. tremendously in terms of, all the legal fees and challenges it's created in many ways for their lives. In some cases, a lot of terrorist threats. The bigger issue is the obstruction in terms of U.S. foreign policy, the terrible impact that this had on possibilities in terms of U.S.-Russia relations, creating a better pathway for the world that President Trump was talking about during the campaign. And so I'm hoping there's going to be a lot more of this. This is just the tip of the iceberg, I think, what we've seen here. A lot more coming out over the weeks to come. But a bigger thing is coming in with the Helsinki summit, and I'm hoping that the quicker that the truth comes out, the more they'll be able to chart a better course for the future of our country. So
we will be at the Helsinki summit,
awesome.
And I look forward to that. Carter Page, thanks very much.
Thanks, Tucker.
Chris Hahn is a radio show host. He's a former staffer to Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, and he joins us tonight. There you have it, Chris. I wanted to talk to Carter Page, not because we're personal friends or I have any vested interest in his story or his life, but because I'm an American, and I think the civil liberties of every American matter. Here you have a guy who clearly didn't commit a crime, whose life has been completely destroyed by the FBI and the Obama administration. You can't look at that and not, as an American, feel outraged. And yet the left is totally fine with what's happened to Carter Page. Why is that, do you think?
Well, I don't think anybody's fine with civil liberties being violated. And I don't know
really?
that his actually have. I mean, the man did take the fifth for a lot of questions when he went to that closed-door session with Congress.
Oh, is that a constitutional right? Wait, hold on. Wait a second. So if you take the fifth, you don't have civil liberties? What are you taking the fifth is a civil liberty?
No.
What law school did you go to?
Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. I went to St. John's, and I'm proud of that. But let me just also say that the President of the United States once said, if they take the fifth, it means they're guilty.
I don't care what Trump said. I'm an American citizen, and you have a right not to testify under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. And by the way, you have a right not to be spied upon for political reasons. And my question is, why was Carter Page the subject of a FISA warrant after the FBI had already looked exhaustively into his interactions with the Russians? They clearly abused his civil liberties, and nobody cares because he volunteered for Donald Trump. That is police state stuff, and civil libertarians of all stripes ought to be upset about it.
Remember, the man started by providing documents to a Russian spy in 2014. That's
what were those
how they
documents?
Start to recruit you. Then the man.
Wait, hold on. You just accused him of. Oh, you don't know what they are.
It is widely known, and he will admit that he gave documents to a Russian spy.
Well, what documents? Was it a pizza menu, or was it the blueprints to a thermonuclear warhead? I mean,
this is how they start to recruit you. They ask you to provide them with something which is legal, and they show that you will actually do it. This was a Russian spy attempting to recruit him. That Russian spy was later indicted and convicted, and this came up in that.
Did the Russian spy
up on a presidential campaign? The FBI was right to start looking into it.
But wait,
absolutely right.
They were. So they already knew that the documents that you attempted to make sound so sinister amounted to nothing, that Carter Page was not, in fact, spying for the Russian government, that he was not a mole. They knew that. They knew that, and yet they got a FISA warrant against him already. Don't you think that the U.S. government, before it spies on its own citizens, ought to have a good reason, and that reason shouldn't be made up by a political activist like Peter Strzok or his girlfriend, Lisa Page?
So the fact that he'd been communicating with senior Russian officials, including members of their spy rings in Russia, and then he goes to Russia with the permission of Corey Lewandowski. He goes to Russia in 2016 during the campaign. I think the FBI would be suspicious, and I think that they should have been suspicious. And they should look into it.
Since you've raised this allegation, we have actually Carter Page in the studio. I want to ask him what these documents were. And I mean, let's get very specific here. You passed documents to a Russian spy. Did you betray your country? What were the documents? And why aren't you in prison right now if that was a felony?
Tucker, this is complete spin. I was teaching a course at New York University called Energy in the World in the spring semester of 2013, and I had a coffee with a diplomat from the Russian consulate. And I showed him.
Who was a spy?
I showed him a couple of
he was
the course. course materials from my
You gave him
academic course.
documents that he requested.
But wait, hold on,
from
wait, Chris,
which is what the
before you impugn, wait, slow down. Before you impugn, hold on. Before you impugn his patriotism as an American, shouldn't you hear what the documents were? Wouldn't that inform your judgment?
Public information, yes.
The documents, that was a course description. Do you think if you passed, Chris Hahn, a course description for a public university course to a foreigner who you didn't know was a spy, would you be betraying your country if you did that?
I tend not to hang out with Russian spies because I'm trying to get a gas deal with their nationally owned gas syndicate.
So do you think that there is something unpatriotic? So you think there's something
tend to love this country?
So you're saying that Carter Page doesn't love his country? Carter Page, where'd you go to college, by the way?
Look,
U.S. Naval Academy.
Oh, you went to the U.S. Naval Academy. So you're accusing him, Chris, of being unpatriotic. This man graduated from Annapolis and was a naval officer, but he's unpatriotic. He doesn't love his country. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know what's in his heart. I have read the files on you, Carter, and I hope that you are a good person, and I hope that if you are a good person, all of this goes away from you. But from what I read, it is something that I would be concerned about if I was the FBI and you were on a presidential campaign. I would be worried that the Russians would be infiltrating that campaign. And I think you yourself,
really quick,
Carter Page, as an expert in this, would agree with that.
Do you love your country, Carter Page?
I love my country, and actually all of my actions directly speak to that. And I think, you know, President Trump and his initiatives in terms of building a better structure for, you know, international relations, particularly U.S.-Russia relations, I think is going to show great love for the country.
Yeah.
And actually,
I love my country. I'm embarrassed to live here right now. This is a shameful moment in our country's history that we would do this to one of our citizens.
A great code word in the in that document from John Solomon today. They use the term, there's a new code word, dragon, right? And that reminded me of Dragon Energy, you know, that Kanye West was talking about. We're both Dragon Energy. President Trump's my brother. I love everyone. It's this very positive approach, trying to create a better world for all American citizens and, you know, better peaceful situation in the world versus, you know, I think what we heard from Mr. Hahn of just tearing people down, you know. And I think the funny part about it is going back to the Dodgy dossier, they were pulling these same you know, falsehoods for.
You know, I don't really know about the dragon stuff, but you don't seem like a spy to me. I'm being told we're out of time. Gentlemen, thank you both. Whoa. Dan Bongino has served his country as well. He's a former Secret Service agent, now an NRA TV contributor, and he joins us now. Do you love your country, Dan? By the way, did you ever think, you were about the same age, did you ever think we'd get to a place where the McCarthy era sort of restarted again, but with a different cast, where people were accusing one another of not loving their country because they gave a college syllabus to somebody who turns out to be working for the Foreign Intelligence Service without even the knowledge of the person who gave the syllabus? Like, what is going on?
It's a disgrace, Tucker. This is a stain on our country, what's going on right now. What happened to the civil libertarian left? I mean, Alan Dershowitz can't even go to a dinner party in Martha's Vineyard, apparently, without being threatened. A liberal, by the way, Alan Dershowitz, because he's asking the questions you and I have been asking for months. Where's the crime? Where's the crime?
I know.
There is no probable cause a crime was committed. Carter Page is on your television show. If this guy's the greatest kingpin of a spy operation we've seen in modern American history, why is he out there free? Well, maybe you got the story wrong. Has that ever occurred to people in the media?
Well, I'm not even sure what Carter Page is saying some of the time, but he's clearly not betraying his country. He's an Annapolis graduate. And to accuse him of espionage and spy on him with no evidence whatsoever is really shameful behavior. I don't know, will there be a point, I don't want to ask you to prognosticate, where the left wakes up and says, we're abetting, you know, something that's really dark and wrong, and we should not do this. We should return to our commitment to civil liberties.
No. Because they're not investigating a crime, and the left is not looking for a crime. What they're looking for is the scalp of Donald Trump, Tucker. They're not looking for a crime here. There is no crime. Tucker, that Solomon piece today in The Hill is devastating. At one point it says, get a load of this, they went after Carter Page. The FBI read the media reports they leaked. They then used the media reports Carter Page complained about as an excuse to go interview Carter Page. That's in the report today. Well, I mean, is this a third world country? Are they kidding?
It sure seems like it. And it's not about Trump. It's not about Carter Page. It's about America and betraying its most basic values, which they are doing. Dan Bongino, thank you.
Yes, sir.